Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Managing work-life balance and mental health is essential for overall well-being and productivity. Here is a summary of key strategies and tips for achieving this balance. Setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care, time management, learning to say no, delegating and seeking support, digital detox, mindful and meditation, and lot others. So let's discuss this in today's episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host Dipshi, and today I have with me the Managing Director of ANSR, Vikram Ahuja. Vikram is the Managing Director of ANSR, the tech leader enabling companies to set up, manage, and scale global teams via GCC. He is also the co-founder and CEO of NSR's proprietary talent platform, Talent 500. This is an end-to-end AI-enabled offering which helps fast-growth businesses acquire, build, and manage global teams. A serial entrepreneur with over 16 years' experience, Vikram has experience in building and scaling technology ventures across travel and e-commerce. He also co-founded one of India's earliest startup accelerators, Chiron, and is included in the IESE Business School's prestigious 40 Under 40 entrepreneur list for 2022, from where he completed his MBA. Welcome to the show, Vikram.
Hi, Dipshi. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing good. We are so glad to have you here today. So before diving into the topic of today, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us about your wellness journey?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Dipshi. So my name is Vikram. I am a co-founder of ANSR and Talent 500. We essentially help global businesses build and manage global teams. Very excited about what we do. We're, in a line of work which is we believe is the future of work, which is really sort of defining how work is going to be done in the future, right? Companies anywhere, building teams anywhere, and really sort of focusing on being where the talent is. So it's an exciting journey. It's an exciting space. We're very excited about, how the world has evolved since the pandemic and how companies of the future are being built, which is a focus on hiring the best talent, irrespective of where the talent is. Mm-hmm. And from our perspective, we're building, an entire platform that supports this journey. We call it the operating system for global work. So it's an extremely exciting sort of business to be in. My background is I've been an entrepreneur for the last many years now, about 12 to 13 years. Prior to this, also ran a travel company called Beyond Travel, where we focused on bringing together travelers with like-minded interests, passions, and needs. Prior to that, ran a startup accelerator, which we sold to Techstars. Before that, built one of the first e-commerce companies out of the Middle East, and so on. And started my career, in tech and tech consulting, and then did management consulting for a while before I switched into my entrepreneurial journey. So that's a little bit about me, and that's a little bit about my business.
That's great. You have an exciting journey, Vikram. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. So how do you define work-life balance, and why is it important for mental health?
Sure. So, work-life balance, as the phrase sort of, it's self-explanatory. For me, it's really the equilibrium between what you do at work and what you do outside of work, and ensuring that there's a healthy balance between the two. And it's funny that in these days we have to actually separate out the two and talk about the need for a balance, because I think a lot of the challenges arising because of lack of work-life balance is a fairly recent phenomena. If you look back to previous generations, our parents and their parents before that, work and life in many ways was intertwined, but also there was just naturally a balance built. I think today we live in a very competitive, fast-moving world where the expectations on all of us as professionals is extremely high. We're also, expected to be high performers in our social life or outside of work in terms of what we do and how we act. And so there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of requirements, and there's a lot of expectations that build up. And more than ever, I think it's very important to be able to build that sense of balance for yourself, in terms of having time for yourselves, for your family, for interests and passions outside of work. At the same time, proceeding on a very, fulfilling and aspirational career journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and especially after the pandemic, people are dealing more with mental health issues. Or actually, previously the mental health was pretty much neglected by everyone, right? But during COVID, with work from home and whatnot, people are acknowledging
Yes.
their issues and expressing and coming out in the open.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you've said it very correctly that I think previously a lot of people ignored it. I think in some way there was also perhaps a bit of a stigma attached to mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, I think the recognition of mental health as being just like any other situation that needs to be addressed. If you have a fever, you take a pill, visit a doctor, or take rest, and I think that's the same thing if you have a mental health condition that you want to sort of to kind of alleviate, right? And I think it's good that we're at least now talking about in the open. I think it gives people a lot of courage to at least come out and address some of these issues
Mm-hmm.
that they might have faced and were not willing to address.
Exactly. So, what are the common signs or indicators that someone may be experiencing an imbalance between their work and personal life?
Sure. So, I think it really depends person to person. I think everyone obviously has their own way of, I guess everyone's bodies and minds are different, and the way they sort of reflect uh, these challenges are different. But I think common signs include, I would say, just continuous fatigue, feeling of stress and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
just a very sort of reduced state of productivity, or a general feeling that you feel overwhelmed all the time. You have too much running through your mind. You don't have time for your family. You find that your personal relationships are either neglected or have some sort of strain. I think these are sort of like the larger signs, but the way it manifests in people could be headaches. It could be insomnia. These are sort of commonly related to things like anxiety, for example. You have palpitations. Maybe you fall sick a lot, right? And what they truly say is, right, a healthy mind and a healthy body go together. So a lot of times for people that are facing work-life imbalance, you'll also see reflections of that in their physical health, right? Backaches,
Mm-hmm.
knee pains, etc. I think these are all kind of reflections of the fact that something is not necessarily right with your body, your mind, and your health.
Mm-hmm. And this imbalance often leads to burnout, right?
Absolutely. I think, very, very common for people feeling this sense of burnout, which is again, lack of interest, lack of productivity, anxiety, right? Breathlessness, just this feeling of uneasiness all the time, and just fatigue, right? And I think that's very common in today's, I think, especially amongst the younger folks in our generation these days.
Yes. What are the potential consequences of neglecting one's mental health in pursuit of career success?
Yeah, I think the potential consequences are many, both short term and long term. And the short term consequences of neglecting one's mental health is the fact that you could be putting a lot of your, relationships at risk. You could be impacting negatively your career because you are not able to perform at your best. And I think sometimes that comes in the way of you actually progressing forward. So that becomes like a vicious cycle because you find that you're not able to progress forward at work. So you put in more hours, and more hours doesn't necessarily lead to more productivity. And it kind of creates this vicious cycle that you can't get out of. At the same time, of course, you're neglecting a lot of your personal life, and relationships are strained, and you tend to lose touch with who you are as a person itself. So this is probably more short and medium term. I think long term consequences, of course, can be very serious from a health perspective. More recently, we've been reading a lot about younger people having heart issues, right? A lot of fatalities associated with, cardiac related issues. And a lot of this comes back to the fact that there's stress, right? If you look at the rise of diabetes among younger people in India today, a lot of that, of course, historically, we've, genetically predisposed to diabetes, but it's alarming that it's hitting people at an even more younger age today, right? And so lifestyle diseases, right, chronic illnesses, these are all, of course, long-term manifestations of burnout. And in the short term, you're really sort of making it very difficult for people around you even to support you or be a part of, your life when you're not kind of recognizing that there's a challenge here.
Mm-hmm. I believe people these days are busy achieving those deadlines, and they're having hectic, busy schedules. So they forget to prioritize themselves, and especially their mental
Yes,
health, right?
absolutely.
So, how do you think? individuals can prioritize their mental health while maintaining a demanding job or career?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost challenge is to really sort of accept and recognize that life is not just about work or achieving the next milestone in your professional journey. And once that recognition is in place, then it becomes important to be able to make time and space for other activities in your life, right? I think first and foremost, ensuring that follow a healthy diet, exercise, and have enough sleep in your life. I think these are just the fundamentals that any doctor would tell you. And then secondly, making sure that you create very healthy boundaries between work and life, right? So it's important to know when to shut off from work and when to sort of keep that phone away and keep the distractions down to a minimum. Of course, all of us have times when we're not able to do that and we need to be present and available because there's something urgent happening, or put in hours on the weekend. And I think all of that is fine as long as this is not an everyday occurrence, as long as you're able to kind of create time which allows you to prioritize your health through food, exercise, just kind of keeping your mind sharp by taking on hobbies or activities that you are personally passionate about outside of work. Then it builds enough distance between you and your work and your life and your career to kind of create space for yourself, right? And that is ultimately what this is about.
So when you're talking about setting healthy boundaries, so what can be some strategies which people can use to set those boundaries between their work and personal life?
Well, in terms of creating boundaries between your work and personal life, I think dedicated work hours is one. And for example, at our office, we follow the concept of core working hours, which means we define 6 hours during the day that we expect that there's an overlap between most people at work, but then we give people space to play around with the other 2 to 3 hours so that they can kind of plan their day according to what suits their lives. For example, I need to sometimes go and drop my kids off to school in the middle of the day, or go and pick them up from school, and I want to make sure that I have the time and space to do that, right? Or find myself time to go and work out during the day because that's the time that I feel most productive in the gym, right? So I think it's important to be able to give yourself that time and space and have those conversations with your colleagues to make sure that you can afford yourself that time. Secondly, I think also, ensuring that in addition to designated work hours, there's also space to, for example, create dedicated play hours, right? Whether that's pursuing activities or hobbies that you like. Sport is a great way to do it, right? You want to turn off work-related notification. You want to make sure that, you define when you're available and when you're not. And most importantly, making sure that you take breaks. I mean, one of the most common occurrences that happens in corporate India is end of the year, you'll see, HR sending a note to all employees saying, hey, you've got extra vacation days, please take them before the days expire. And it really kind of makes you think, why do we not take breaks to the year? Like if you look at the European way of life, every summer there is designated off hours where people take off with their families. Whereas in India, of course, we have a fear of either missing out at work, or we have unrealistic expectations from our bosses and or what have you, where taking off is not looked at very favorably sometimes. But I think as employees, this is our right? We're given 21 to 30 days off a year, and it's important, I think, then to make time for that and really switch off.
Yes. And like you said, organizations, I believe, have a big role to play when it comes to a healthy work-life balance, like flexible work hours, a healthy work environment, and etc. etc.
Yeah.
So, can you also tell me some of the ways how organizations can support their employees in achieving that healthy work-life balance?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for organizations, I think the responsibility comes in two ways. One is, of course, in terms of your processes that you follow internally at work, and two is in terms of the benefits that you allow your employees. So in terms of processes, for example, ensuring that there is clarity in terms of roles and responsibilities, in terms of timelines and deliverables, ensuring that sometimes work that is allocated, is done so on mutual consent, but also with realistic, deliverables, right? And it's also the responsibility of the organization to ensure that their employees are constantly making time for themselves by making sure that they're, that time off, for example, is taken seriously, right? So I think from a processes standpoint, I think these things become important. The other part of it really is in terms of policies and benefits, right? So for example, at Talent 500, we have a very robust partnership with a company that offers mental health counseling to all our employees, right? Completely anonymous. You can sign up, you can get access to, a therapist and schedule time to speak, both online, offline, right? So you have that support that is provided. We also provide our employees the option of taking time off during the week, or if they have a day where they don't feel that they are mentally in the right space, right? So again, it's building that acceptability that look, mental health challenges is a real challenge for us to be aware of, and really sort of recognizing that, and giving people the time and space to deal with things, right? So I think these are really what organizations can do. And I think lastly, just promoting a culture where there is respect for personal time and work time, and, ensuring that everyone through the chain follows that, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Do you think technology can also have a role to play in this? And what steps can individuals take to use technology more mindfully?
Yeah, absolutely. Previously we all had laptops or we had desktops, plugged into our office, and we would be in the office, and that's where you had access to information in office, and then you would leave, and you would leave that machine behind, and you were done with work. Today, our work travels with us. It's available on our phones, and there's no escaping it, right? You've got your email on your phone. You've got, tools like Slack or Teams, right? You've got WhatsApp, right? So there's no running away from work. At the same time, when you're in the office, you've got your social media on your phone as well, right? You've got your Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and, everything else in the middle, sort of constantly texting you and pinging you and seeking your attention through the day. So there's just no break. When you're at work, you're getting distracted by, outside of work tools and apps. And when you're outside of work, you're getting distracted by work emails and work messages and so on and so forth. So technology definitely has a role to play. But at the same time, a technology is only as powerful or as evil as we make it out to be. So I think the ultimate, responsibility comes back on us as users of this technology to use it wisely and make sure that we, draw a line with how much time we spend online. So for example, a lot of devices today have limits that you can put on screen time. You can put limits on specific apps, right? And personally, I use that, and I find it very useful sometimes when you're just sort of sitting around and having a very unproductive day, and before you know it, you've spent 20 minutes on Instagram just scrolling through a feed. At least you get notified saying, hey buddy, like, probably time for you to get off and do something else. Exactly. So absolutely technology can have a role. But again, I see technology as being neither evil nor, powerful. I think it's the usage of technology that makes that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, self-control is one of the most important things, I think. Yeah. Okay, Vikram. So thank you so much. With this, we almost come to the end of today's session. So last but not the least, would you like to suggest some valuable tips to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. From my own experience as being an entrepreneur, the life of an entrepreneur is extremely rocky, right? There's lots of highs, lots of lows. Many times you're going through this journey alone. What has helped me through my journey of being an entrepreneur is three things. One is, ensuring I focus on my health. So for me, going to the gym or getting a workout every day is important. And I do that through integrating it with work. So for example, work calls, sometimes not all calls need to be on video, right? If I have long calls, I make sure that I walk through this. And I find that has been such a tremendous benefit for me. And in fact, we launched, a Get Fit challenge at work where we challenged all our teams to sort of do the same, and we would report back on how many steps everybody walked in a day. And it was phenomenal. I think we had, enough steps at the end of the first month that you could cover the entire circumference of the earth, right? So it's phenomenal to see the fact that I think everybody wants to make time for their health, but people talk about the fact that I can't find time, right? The truth is you got to make time for it, and it has to be a priority. So for me, that's perhaps the most important. And the second thing is, I think, really just focusing on, just routines that help, whether that's things like, meditating or finding space, like quiet space for yourself. I think those are really important to just build that connection with, mind and body, and find yourself just reigniting that connection with yourself. I think that's really important as well. And then third is, of course, making space for interests and passions outside of work. I think we all need to take ourselves a little less seriously and discover things that we enjoy and excite us.
Yes. Like you said about the wellness challenges, there are so many wellness platforms out there available like today, right? So where you can host challenges for employees, those corporate wellness challenges, and the platforms provide like step trackers. Then there are walkathons, which are almost like hosted on those platforms all the time, right? So I believe those challenges and contests really help to keep employees' health in check in a way.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important, again, as an organization to kind of take responsibility.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So thank you, Vikram, for sharing your insights with us today. It was a very nice session.
Thank you, Dipshi. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.